I'm going to invite Troy McNamara to the stage now with our Nedbank use case story. Nedbank has been a customer of ours now for a year and a half. It's quite amazing to see what they've done, and I hope that you'll agree with me once we get through this presentation today.
Hi everybody. So I'm not Troy. He is. My name is Rafeea, and I work with Troy in the Devops COE in Nedbank. And we're quite aware that everyone's quite tired, and I think we're standing between you and lunch. So we're going to attempt to keep our presentation a bit lighter and faster. And in any event, the concepts that we're going to touch have already been detailed quite extensively by the previous presenters. So what we're going to take you through is literally what Nedbank's been attempting to do, and our take on DevOps and how it is that we've been going on this journey of implementing DevOps within the bank. So Troy, would you like to?
I don't know if I'm on yet. Hello? Oh, there we go. Yes, I'm Troy. So I look after the DevOps crew back at Nedbank. It's been a fun journey. We started middle of 2017, and almost to the point that Stefan raised, where there's so many threats from fintechs to our bank, and especially other banks as well. So in the interest of trying to get our product into the hands of our customers quickly with quality built in and security and all these kind of good things, we started in earnest with our Devops Journey. So what we want to do today is just take you through just some of the learnings that we've gone through, and then the next steps that we are planning to take.
Okay.
Right.
So we're not really going to go through the agenda because, well, it'll be clear from the slides as we go along. The reason we included the history of DevOps in this presentation is because we really want to highlight the fact that we're quite cognizant of what DevOps is. And it's quite important for us to reflect on this, because one of the things that we are quite, we believe strongly in is not repeating mistakes that others have made or that we ourselves have made. For us, our interpretation of DevOps is such that DevOps is not something new. It's not a new concept that popped up in 2019 or 2017. It literally has been something that has been in existence in an informal fashion, in an informal way. That's the way we interpret it. I mean, you can look at things as far back as 1957, when the first developer job or role was defined. That we see as like one of the foundation blocks of DevOps. This then obviously progressed to the point in pinpoint this to 1967, when NOCs and operation teams were developed and came to being. And effectively, in the history of the DevOps journey, we really pay attention to the fact that we've got these roles, we've got site reliability engineers, we've got all of these siloed individual teams that have been in existence trying to do the same thing, trying to do what we define in the DevOps context, but have not formalized this definition. And somewhere around 2009, we see that there have been a marrying between the Dev and the Ops concept, and basically birthed what we traditionally today called DevOps. In our team and within Nedbank, and it's actually something Troy always says, he keeps mentioning that we should automate the automation. And we view this as what needs to happen for us to move forward from this point, and we see this as where DevOps is going.
Yeah, that's right. So having seen that history, how many people kind of, yeah. So most of our business folks think up of a lot of good stuff. We get some really clever folks to go ahead and write the stuff, and we're saying, right, let's get it into production. And then we sweat quite a bit. We actually don't need to go to the gym or anything like that, and we start to do this kind of thing, right? And essentially from there, we started looking at, so why are we doing that? Why do we feel like that? Why is this anxiety building up? So essentially, if we look at it, our dev teams kind of were doing like really cool things, and our ops guys were kind of going, listen, we've got to keep the lights on. Let's not just smash stuff in, right? So you had this different delivery operating models, right? So where the devs, as you can see on the slide, they want to enable features and they want to go as fast as they can. And from a operations perspective, we're saying, hold on, we want to protect the business. And also we just need to go a little bit slower because we're not trusting things here. Because what we've done is we've received the package or the development artifacts over that wall of chaos. So essentially, it's hey, we're done with the coding. Here's the package. Go ahead and just go and install it. So these are the things that we started picking up. So there was disparate ways of deploying software, no really good release collaboration. We worked in silos. I'm sure most of these things, most of you have experienced.
To Troy's point there, one of the things that we really picked up was you'd often find yourself in a position where when you're going into a release or deployment, the dependency of your application has been deployed at the same time. So really the release coordination was a big thing that we needed to overcome. And so from a Nedbank perspective, we took all of these things in this actually absolutely chaotic world into consideration, and we defined an end state for us. And
hence we...
That's what it looked like.
Went to beat up Thanos and got his glove, and then we'll just fix everything. So essentially, our end game is really to get everyone in the same movie, right? So we want to succeed together, so both dev and ops. So we want to strive towards frequent and quality deployments, faster time to market, improved release coordination, more collaboration between our teams, removing constraints and opening up bottlenecks, etc. And we really, as Nedbank, want to reach our strategy, which is 2020, which is digital first, first in digital. All right. So it's really a digital mindset. So to undertake all of this, we went down a path.
Yeah. So the journey so far is basically, at this point, I think for us, the DevOps practice is something that it's just over a year. It's not a very mature practice that we're implementing as yet in Nedbank, but there are certain key things that we have identified and have already embarked upon. These include maturity assessments within our teams. To know where you're going, you often have to understand exactly where it is that you are. That's the only way to understand what the gaps and problems are, especially with your people and your skills. And so this is something that we've invested in and something that's an ongoing process for us at Nedbank. We've also focused on equipping people, like Stefan and the other speakers have mentioned, ensuring that your team and your resources, your people are your largest resources. Ensuring that you have the correct resources is extremely important. It's not just about hiring new skill, it's about skilling your existing staff. And so we've invested in masterclasses for the bank and for our people to ensure that with our tool chain, with the concepts around DevOps, we really are giving them the right content to enable them to do their jobs. We've also basically formed community of interests and community of practice where dev and other interested participants can join and discuss all of the concepts. It's very Nedbank related, but we also try and ensure that the things that we discuss in these forums refer to what's going on in the world and the events around us. It's the only way that we can move the bank forward. Devops Enablement, in terms of our tooling, Troy will elaborate on this a bit more, but we've really invested in our automated tooling pipelines to ensure that we can increase our efficiencies. Within Nedbank, there's also been a large drive, a working group, which is NWOW. It's called New Ways of Working. And it's literally a culture shift, because culture is something that we identified to be a key factor in the DevOps transformation journey. And this is a really big thing within Nedbank at the moment, and it's one of our milestones. We've also been involved in DevOps days and seminars like these, trying to make sure that we stay on top of our game and to expose our people to the relevant information out there.
Great. So we looked at the DevOps transformation journey that we wanted to undertake, and we understood that we have to change the people, we have to change our processes, and we have to change our technology. So essentially, at first glance, it's very daunting, and we could have just sat back and tried to put a best plan together, but we just started, right? So we took small chunks and we just started with teams, where we started to look at how we would bring in the best. So look at, from a people perspective, look at our structure. So looking at how we need to move from project teams to more product teams, which is very difficult when we have lots of project management focus as the bank. So that was looking for people that understood the change that we were about to undertake, and then go on the journey with us and not kind of be too much of a roadblock. And that was through education. So we had to educate people. The processes, we had to do some value stream mapping with teams to understand what their current processes were, to then say, how can we start to lean out some of these processes that are actually taking us so long to get our features to our customers. And then from a technology perspective, we went through a whole process of looking at all of our tooling and saying, right, what's the best tooling out there in the market, looking and partnering with vendors and helping us to decide how we can enable our processes and our people, especially to deliver product.
Just one more thing on that point. I think, as Troy has mentioned many times to us in the team, people, process, and technology are they're interdependent. Success in one of these, we've seen with competitors and things like that, you may implement the perfect technology, but if your people and your processes are not along on the bus with you on this journey, it's a failure. So we're taking all of these components hand in hand and focusing our time on all three, not one in isolation. Okay. So then this brings us to the questions that we've asked ourselves. With a large-scale organization like a bank, where you've got a lot of bureaucracy and you've got a lot of existing cultures, the first question we asked was, can people actually change? I think all of us have heard the statement, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And this is a serious challenge that we face every day, because you can give someone a Lamborghini, but if they can't drive, it doesn't really help them. So this is why this has been like our key focus area. And what we've also realized is that in 6 months' time, we won't get to a place where we'll say, yeah, we've changed the culture in the bank and now we're DevOpsified. There's no such thing. The environment is changing around us all the time, which means there has to be a continuous learning environment and a continuous learning culture, which means the net bankers of today will not be the net bankers next year. And that is actually what we are promoting. And we do believe that this can happen. Yes, we can.
We're agile. Who needs a process, really? Let's just do it, right? We don't need to really. Do we need documentation? No, not really. Do we need a process? Nah, it's not good. Yes, we do need a process. Being a bank and having frequent audits from the Reserve Bank and many other institutions, we need to make sure that our processes are sturdy, strong, and can handle the change that we are trying to make. And we need to make sure that we are building in the lean governance that we need now in our new journey as we transform to DevOps. So as I mentioned, we start to go with teams and business areas. We start to do value stream mapping, and we help them realize how we can improve and get them to be efficient. And I think and at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're not just pushing features. So we're actually talking to all the teams to say, we're not counting up how many features we're delivering, because some of them could be absolutely rubbish, right? So we want to make sure that we get good feedback from our customers so that we're actually enticing more and making sure that we're delivering the services that they actually need on our digital platforms. So just continuing on to that, we looked at currently how we were how we were delivering our products to production. So we started thinking about creating a continuous release process, right? And that's from all the way from source to our target. And you'll see later on how we solve that. Actually, it's the next slide, which is through pipelines. Okay, so pipelines are the most important thing in DevOps. So I'm going to swing to that. And really what a pipeline is an automated manifestation of your processes for getting software from version control into the hands of your users. There's lots of other words there. But essentially, it's really looking at, through the value stream map, how do we do things, taking that value stream map, leaning it out, and then trying to get most of it automated.
Okay, and on that point, another thing that I'd just like to highlight here is, the automated pipelines is generally considered a technology aspect, and it is a technology aspect of a DevOps initiative. But in automating your pipeline, you have to have a clear understanding of what the process is that you are currently implementing. And even though we're focused on this as a method of on our DevOps transformation, what we realized is, by embarking on this process, while you're getting the correct tooling and things in place, we were really able to unpack what was the gaps in our processes, what are inefficiencies, what is wasteful, and what are the things that we can really streamline and make better.
Absolutely. So what is a pipeline? So essentially, we're taking all of the activities that a dev is doing and potentially our release folks are doing and getting it automated. And as you can see, we have the business drivers, which is all of our requirements and the planning and all those kind of good things, all the stories that are ready to be devved. So if we look at our build pipeline, that's our continuous integration pipeline. So that's owned by the developers, and they create this. And essentially, we automatically building, we're running unit tests, so we're bringing in concepts like test-driven development and all these kind of things. We deploy code to a sandbox or to a dev server, and we run a sampling of tests, right? So smoke tests and a couple of other things. To give the developers an understanding how good the quality is of the code that they're building, right? And then from a release pipeline perspective, this is where the folks before us spoke about continuous delivery and continuous deployment. So I won't go into that too much. But essentially, what we want to get out of these pipelines is more predictability, repeatability, more efficiency, more consistency. And I think quality is a big key factor in that. And people always look at the velocity piece over all of these things. Yes, we do want to go faster, but we want to make sure that we are building quality in.
Direction is important.
Oh, yes, speed and direction. That's right, velocity. So, there's something wrong with this picture, right? So, where's security? So we didn't include them because they just sit somewhere else, and we know they're going to stop us somewhere along the line. It's fine. Just before production, they'll just come along and go, no, where's this, where's that, where's that? And it's kind of, this is what we see them as. So, in the past, we saw them as the no guys. Can we do this? No. But why? No. So it's really about bringing them on the journey with us to say, you need to be embedded in our teams, you need to embed practices into developers to make sure that, that we're building security in from the start. So this is just a nice statement that we got from, thanks Sonatype, from the DevSecOps report. And it really is something that we're going to pin up against every security person's cubicle. The days of standalone security teams isolated from real processes, so I'm using the word real because I don't think they understand that, of development are coming to an end. So if I paraphrase, security needs to be invited to the party, not perceived as a goon standing at the front door denying admission. So we don't want them to be the bouncer, right? So we want them to be part of the whole thing. Yes, I shouldn't say goon. No security people here, no, that's fine.
And just to Troy's point, the way Nedbank is working in the way that we're setting up teams, obviously with collaboration and things like that, this is one of the key roles that we've identified to be part of our squads or guilds or whatever you'd like to call them. So it's something that we are working towards and implementing currently.
That's correct. So essentially, if we look at the process that we normally go through, development, test, QA, test more, and then production. And security is really applied between the QA testing and production. And so we're saying we're trying to shift left more with our introduction of DevSecOps, right? So we're trying to bring things more left. I think the next slide will kind of try and help paint that picture. Okay, busy slide.
It's abstract art.
Picasso. So this is kind of a mapping of most of the tooling that we make use of at Nedbank. You'll see we're talking about Biz DevOps. Biz DevOps is actually Biz, Design, Dev, Sec, Test, everything Ops, right? Star Ops. So what we're trying to do is just map all the tooling that we're making use of to actually start to deliver products to production. So if I start on the top, so we have a design team. So we're employing something called Design Ops. So we're using a product called InVision, which allows us to ensure that everyone can collaborate on designs. We can create design artifacts and assets. And essentially we can also give our business people a clickable kind of application. No real business logic, but they can click through the demo and see how their application is going to look towards their customer. Yes, then we make use of Confluence, and what we do is we export from InVision into Confluence, and we go then through a rigorous process where we accept the designs plus all of the other requirement components. So there could be all the different diagrams that we also create. So we've got plugins into Confluence where we start creating sequence diagrams, flow diagrams, state diagrams, etc., etc. You might think, oh, but you're agile. Why are you doing these things? We still need to have them in place. So we understand what we're trying to build and also make sure that regulators do understand. Then from a planning perspective, we have Jira and Portfolio for Jira. Portfolio. So we're very ambitious and we're looking at scaling our Scrum practices, right? So we're looking at things like scaled agile framework, DAD, and so on and so forth. So we're looking at how we start to ensure that for our large programs that we can coordinate dependencies and releases across all of them. So we make use of Bitbucket from a dev perspective. And then from build engines, we because we've got so many stacks, so we've got everything from mobile to COBOL. So we've got Bitbucket, we use Circle CI. So some stuff on the picture, not here. We also are going to be making use of ISPW from CompuWare as part of our COBOL development. So we're bringing our COBOL folks forward into the DevOps world. We make use of Jenkins. We make use of SonarQube. We also make use of Nexus IQ. So that was a good thing. So some of our developers started putting out new websites, and they started using Angular, and they started downloading dependencies from the internet, and there was no scanning. Yay! So being a bank, that kind of puts us at risk. So by installing Nexus and Nexus IQ, we started scanning the repositories in Nexus, and we got a shock. So, you know, we caught this before the folks actually went into production. So we caught them way earlier, such that we can make sure that the dependencies that they're using are the right versions, and you know, there's no CVE issues against those particular dependencies. Lots of horror stories of people just doing that without using products like this. We won't go there. And then we also make use of SonarQube, and that's always part of our CI. And you'll see later we make use of that as we do our releases. Then from a verify perspective, you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff there because we are a bank. So stuff that we're going to be starting to look at is OWASP. So we're going to try and start building that into our automated testing. So we make use of Cucumber, using Gherkin. Yes, bringing all the vegetables through and fruits and other things.
We're healthy.
And that's to help us introduce BDD into our organization, which is behavioral driven development. We make use of, I can't even see that down there. Oh, Now Secure, yes. So Now Secure was a device that we used to do our penetration testing on our mobile apps and stuff like that. As of last year, they've released APIs for that, so we're going to start building that into our CD pipelines. We make use of Rational App Scan from IBM, Selenium, Ready API for our testing of our SOA services. JMeter HIP test is something that's going to help us from a test management perspective to drive BDD. Then, it's down the bottom corner. As we're experimenting with containers, and we looked at the scanning capabilities of our products that we had. So we know Nexus, we can do that. But we had something called Claire. So Claire was doing the scanning of our container images. And then as part of our packaging and deployment, we used IBM's Open Code Deploy. And then from a release perspective, we do make use of Zebia Labs XL release. And then from a configure perspective, so when we start to look at infrastructure as code, and as we start to move to more automation of platforms, so then we're making use of the HashiCorp stuff, Terraform, Ansible, Chef, Vault, Console, and we're also making use of Rancher. Right. So as we dabble into the container market, we are looking at other products other than Rancher, so potentially OpenShift, Pivotals, PKS, etc. There's a whole bunch of them. Just one thing to note, as part of the Chef component, we have a lot of legacy applications. Some of them are going to be supported because one of the big drivers, and it's a recent strategy, is we're moving to the cloud, and it's a multi-cloud strategy, is to how do we quickly get those 2003, 2008 applications, so running on the server 2003, 2008, how do we get them off of there? Because those things should have been killed off. But unfortunately, it's been on a machine that's been running somewhere, and that person's left, and it just kept on running, and no one knew about it. And then when you did an audit, it's like, oh gosh, we've got all of these kind of things running, and no, we can't switch them off because certain things will, that light will go off and that will crash or something like that. So essentially, we're looking at things like shared habitat and Docker EE to see how do we modernize some of those .NET applications from yesteryear and bring them forward into a container, and then we can start moving forward and allowing the dev teams to go and do the rewrites. From a monitoring perspective, we use Dynatrace. And I think that's it, eh? Yeah?
I think the main point, as to Stefan's point, basically when you've got devs, you get a lot of tooling. So conformance is also a key feature for us. We're trying to recommend a set of tools, but in the case of the bank, as Troy says, you've got random applications running, so we've got to cater for everything. So standardization is part of our goals, but not to inhibit the current business as usual activities. Okay, we're now going to go through a few examples in Nedbank and how we've actually implemented tooling to assist us. And Casper will make sense in a little while.
Okay, so I'm not going to go through the XL release. You've seen what it does. And essentially, when we piloted this, we chose a team, and its internal name is called the Ghost Squad, right? And it's all to do with something called ghost accounts in banking, right? And so we took their application and we said, right, we're going to actually start to apply some of the DevOps practices. And So we started building the pipelines. So we went through the value stream mapping, started building the pipelines, and lo and behold, I don't know if you can see that. So the deployment would take about 3 to 4 weeks, right? Because there would be handoffs to every single person. And the handoffs were insane. You know, I'd hand over to someone else, they weren't there, I'd have to wait for them, I'd have to phone them, hey, listen, we're doing a deployment, what's going on, let's do this. And so what we've done is we've taken all of those tasks, those handoffs, and essentially we can release now within a day. So we're actually meeting our targets. So we've taken this a step further. So as we start to build release trains, from a safe perspective, am I allowed to use that?
No.
I shouldn't say that. There's a nice feature within Excel release where we can actually do sub-releases. So if we have releases for our front end, our middleware, and our COBOL guys, we can actually coordinate all of that through one master release pipeline, right? So we can actually release the entire stack in one go. And so we're going to start piloting that, such that I don't want to say force, but we're going to try and get the collaboration across all of these stacks and all of the teams to ensure that when we start doing this, we start to do proper collaborative planning. So we start to understand our dependencies and we start to understand the different release versions, etc., so that we can actually earmark a release date when we can actually start to push out functionality. Yeah. So just some stats on that. That's how many completed releases we've had so far. Average release duration is 2 days and 3 hours and 1 minute. And that's with the DevOps crew actually pushing teams to start adopting more agile practices and lean thinking and better planning. Not so much emphasis on the tooling, but it's really to say we've got to do things differently. And the tool helps you from a visualization perspective, because we can start to look at what tasks take so very long, who we're waiting for. Can we not come and talk to you? Can we not automate that? So it's been a real eye-opener to see, as we run releases, what are the tasks that are actually causing us pain.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of valuable information, especially from our deployment and release pipelines. And like we said right in the beginning, the release pipeline for us was a major blockage in getting value to our customers. So that's why this has been a focus area, and I must say, with Excel release, we've come quite far on that journey.
Yeah, and it's helped us to talk across the SDLC. So, hey testers, let's get stuff automated. And I don't want to say the release pipeline shows them up that, because essentially what we did was we had a manual task for them, and you could see it would take like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't like seeing that on a dashboard. Guess what? I'm going to start automating. I don't want to be the guy going, oh gosh, I'm the guy holding up everyone else for this release. So it helps you to visualize these things, and it's not really from a carrot and stick perspective. It's really about saying, oh, you know what? I'm the holdup. I'm the blocker. I need to go make the change. So this has helped us.
Yeah, it's a culture of responsibility.
Yeah, back to culture. There we go. So what's next for us? As I said, we're going to look at infrastructure as code and drive that. Creating blueprints where we can deploy on-prem and into any cloud that we wish. And because right now,
Wait, hold on. We're going to get Troy to explain why he was so adamant about the skeleton being included. Troy?
Because it takes that long to get a server. So, no ops guys? No. Don't want to get smacked, yeah. But yeah, so we want to make sure that we are ensuring that it's not our dev guys that are only on the journey. It's really got to be our ops guys, our security guys. It's like everyone that is tied to delivering that particular product. So IOC is a very big focus on our side. From a dev perspective, we're looking at microservices, looking at these big monolithic bits of code that we've written, and then looking at how do we modernize it, and then getting it into a proper container platform that can span clouds, etc., etc. But I think the big thing, what we want to leave with, is we want to build a continuous learning culture. So we're always after milestones, inspecting and adapting. So we're bringing in agile practices into all the teams to say, well, was that really good? Did I do well there? How can I improve? And so, yeah. And that's our story. Thank you.
By the way, ask Troy the questions, not me.
Okay.
Before we break for lunch, any questions quickly?
Hi guys, thanks.
Hi.
Can you give me a little view of your, DevOps Center of Excellence?
Yeah, so in such a large organization where we come from a very strong command and control kind of culture, we sat down and as a COE we started to strategize how would we embed these practices into teams. And I think the main thing is trying to get to that, build the one, and then replicate from the one. And unfortunately, we weren't given that opportunity. We had to build the 25 in one go kind of thing. So we had to strategize, how would we do that? And that was by getting DevOps engineers trained up and understanding the different cultures and understanding of what DevOps means. And with different backgrounds from a dev perspective and an ops perspective, going into teams and then starting to help them understand what this journey is, what is DevOps, and then really taking them on the journey with us and showing them the value of doing this. So our COE is made up of 19 folks. So there's 80% are permanent, and we have some contractors. And yeah, we work right across all the stacks. Sure.
Okay, I was actually going to answer that question in this way.
Yes.
So our approach to basically getting the DevOps practice, culture, learning, and mindset to our developers and our ops team started off by us focusing on the technology, because the tool chain is the thing that the developers and the ops guys can recognize with most. Us going and speaking to them and trying to get a mind shift of something that they don't know what you're talking about is going to go out the door. It's that practical implementation of things that is of value, and that's where we focused our area. So we've got a very highly skilled team in our COE, I must say that, and the guys push not only the adoption of the tooling, but the practices, the culture, the principles per squad, and work with these teams to make sure that when they leave, because that's the rationale, they're not sitting in those squads for indefinite amount of time, it's for like a month or two. When they leave, the team is self-standing and able to implement things in the right fashion going forward.
Yeah, and we do have an NWOW team that works with business, which we actually collaborate with. And as part of that New Ways of Working team, there's a bunch of stakeholders from our Agile COE, our Requirements COE. So there's a lot of COEs that form part of that New Ways of Working, of which we're part of. And so that's one of the business drivers to then help business understand the journey that DevOps actually brings and the value out of that.
Guys, thank you very much. I'm going to call it. The guys will be back later on, I hope. So if you want to mingle with them during the network session later, that will be absolutely brilliant.